Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode. I am joined today by the wonderful Anna Campbell, and we are going to be talking about your word of the year. So, this is something that we do together every year. And as we are approaching a brand new year, it's a very exciting time. We say goodbye to an old year. We bring in a new one. We don't love doing resolutions because I think most people know that most New Year's resolutions within 14 days have been unsuccessful in some way. And we don't want to start the year setting ourselves up for failure. We want to set ourselves up for success. And I do find that doing a resolution can feel a bit like a punishment or a I have to do this or pressure. And often that doesn't kind of work out. So, the word of the year, the idea behind it is that it is just one word that sets your direction for the year. And each year you choose a different word, or it might be the same word, and it should kind of really just inspire you, encourage you, and set you on a nice path. So that's what today's topic is going to be about. Me and Anna are going to be sharing our words for the year and encouraging you to think of your word for the year. So it's a nice inspirational and also kind of personal one for you guys. So we're excited to chat about this today. So welcome, Anna. It's lovely to have you here talking about this topic again.
Yeah, I know. It's been good to kind of reflect back because I think this is the fourth year in a row we've done this exercise. And I think that's so true. It's so nice to have something that is there as a theme for the year, and a word perhaps that relates to different aspects of our life, or maybe it's our work or personal or whatever. But also it doesn't fit. Sometimes I think resolutions, they can feel a bit heavy. They feel a bit judgy, like, oh, you're not doing enough. And so I feel like the word of the year is a bit more expansive.
Mm.
And that's why I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that you can come back to whenever you're feeling stuck or whenever you're feeling lost or you're like trying to make a decision. It's like, well, this is the intention that I set at the beginning. So does this serve that purpose? And I think one of the things I really like about it, as like you said, we've been doing it for quite a few years now, is it gives each year a different flavor. So it's also kind of breaks up the life in that it's not just like, oh, I just need to work for the next decade. It's like, well, this year I'm going to focus on growth, and next year I'm going to focus on stability, and next year I'm going to focus on learning. And yeah, it really gives that kind of structural context for the year. And yeah, it feels very like reassuring and refreshing for the brain to just be like, I just have to think about one word. I don't have to have this big convoluted plan and everything all sorted out. And I think wherever you're at in your journey with your business, with your making, with yourself, you can think of one word of intention that you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on for now. So yeah, a lovely way to bring in the new year. So, Anna, do you want to talk a little bit about your word for the year to begin with? Just before we get into that, I did want to mention I think what's a good thing to do as you're coming up with your word for the year is to reflect on the past year and sort of think about, okay, what happened, where am I at, and what do I need next? Has it been a really difficult, stressful year? Do you need a more restful period, a more calming period, and do you need a word that kind of reflects that? Because the last thing we want is for our words to be punishing. I know sometimes I've seen people say, my word is I need to do better, and it's like, well, first of all, that's not a word, um, and second of all, that's not what we want to take into the year. So I always find reflecting on, oh, has it been quite a calm, quiet year, and actually you're ready to go now. You're like, right, this is it. This is the year I'm going to kind of push forward. It reminds me a bit of like starting a workout or something. It's like, do I need it intense? Do I need it gentle? Do I need to not do it at all? Like, what is the flavor? But yeah, Anna, maybe you can tell us a bit about maybe a little bit about your year this year, and then what your word is, and kind of what led you to that.
Yeah, I thought there's so much. There's so much to talk about. I love it. And I actually really enjoyed looking back on previous ones and seeing where I was and what like where my head was at. Because I think that also is helpful in reminding you that you've how far you've come as well. So
Mm.
if you've been doing this along with us for a few years, it's really worth doing that reflection because we're forever kind of focusing on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But actually this is one way we're doing that, but it's also a kind of a really good, like you said, a really really lovely reflective thing to do. And I think I agree with you. I think for me, my suggestion for a word would be something that is a positive rather than a stop. Stop doing this, stop doing that. Change it and find the way. How can you say what you want to do instead of what you don't want to do? So I think that's important. So, if you have been running around, and then maybe rest or rejuvenate or something like that might be a good word for the year. But you can see what kind of resonates for you. And we do, just to say as well, in the show notes we do have kind of step by step guide and some words for you to just like 50, I think 100 words for you to look through, just to give you some ideas. So if you're feeling a bit like, oh, I don't know, there's a bit of a guide for how to do it. But yeah, this year it's been a bit mad for me, and actually my word is very much associated with that. And we haven't actually told each other what our words are before this, so
No,
you don't know what it is.
I'm excited to learn. Yeah.
Well, I've got a kind of a short list of three. I'll have to say. I think I'll often have three, and like you say, for different areas of what I'm doing. But I think as my business is called the Good Girl Rebellion, I'm going with rebel or rebel as my word for this year, because I've been working really hard kind of in the background. I'm getting all of my work ready for that and doing some coaching with people and, all of that kind of stuff. And now it feels like it's a time to kind of step into it and step forward. And I think for me, it's both rebel and rebel. So rebel being like what I am, but also rebel is like the action of it. So I quite like that it's two things, two things in one. And I think for me, being a rebel is about kind of stepping out there and being visible and, just doing the thing that maybe I've been kind of keeping back from and not really doing that much, and just kind of stepping into that. So it feels like a really good word for me this year.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, kind of continuing to step out of the comfort zone. I love how it's tied in with your business and your community that you're building. And I mean, I think you do this already, but it's great. It's going to be great to see more of it. Do you have any ideas for like how? I mean, that's the great thing about the word of the year is you don't need to know how. It's just setting the vision.
Yeah.
I'm always curious. Like, are there any practical things that you think, oh, I'd like to do more of this, or this is, that come to mind when you say your word of the year?
Yeah, well, I'm writing a book. Yay. I
Oh,
told you about that before.
yes.
Writing
Yeah.
my book, which should come out next year. And so that's about, I guess it's a little bit about that that being visible around it as well. Because I
Mm,
think there are times in your life where you're like, oh, I'm gonna do things and do the right thing for me. And that has been a feature of my year this year. But now it's about that kind of being bold, being visible. So bold was another one I had on my mind. I was like, well, could maybe bold, but then I thought, well, actually, rebel kind of, it's a
it's
similar.
quite bold, yeah.
It's
You
a
can't
bold.
be rebel.
It's a bold thing. I can be a bold rebel. That's
Yeah.
fine. So it's about that visibility, being hosting on this podcast and my own podcast as well. So it's about kind of just getting myself out there
Mhm.
and finding the kindred spirits who are also ready to have their rebel era, I think.
Love it, love it. I'm ready for the rebel era. I'm ready to be here for it. It's awesome. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so nice, isn't it, that it's just one word, but we all understand what you mean by it, and we can see how it's going to affect your business and yourself. And like, I think that's what's so powerful about these words of the year is like it's choosing the word, but then it's asking. I ask myself these questions like, why do I want that word? What has led up to that? What am I hoping for out of the year? Like, are there any practical ways in which I can visualize myself actually starting to put this into action? Not a whole plan, but just a rough, like, oh, I think I'll do this, or I think I might try that. So brilliant. Awesome.
Mm. I know, I'm excited. And so what about you? Because I feel we're coming into a new era for Jules Academy as well next year, which
Yeah.
is super exciting. So it's almost like we've got two businesses. Well, they're both together but also separate in a lot of ways. So,
Yes.
yeah, how did you go about choosing your word, and have you
Yeah.
managed to narrow it down?
Yeah, well, I find like throughout sort of December, I kind of ask myself about it. And obviously, we do the podcast, so I know it's coming. But just generally, I sort of just have little check ins with myself. And I'm like, what is the word? I kind of ask the universe for the word rather than come up with it myself. And I find
Mhm.
after a week or two of reflecting, it just sort of just in the background when you're like bored waiting for pasta to boil or something, you're just like, oh, I think it's going to be this. I think this is what I want. So it's quite a gentle process to come to it. But yeah, I actually have two words this year, which is a little bit cheating. But like you said, there's a big like new project that we're working on, and I have a word for that. And then I have a word kind of for my business or my working life, and then I have one for myself. And but they also both relate to each other. So I feel like they'll go really well together. So yeah, like I said, cheating a little bit because so far I've only ever had one word. But my word that I wanted for myself didn't correlate to the business quite so well. So my word for the business, especially kind of looking at Jewelers Academy's Brighton, is action, because when you're starting a new business, there's so many actions to take. And I think something that can be really, really easily get in the way is overthinking and worrying about making things perfect. And this will be probably helpful for anyone starting a business this year is just do it. Like just the night phrase, just get the building, just get the staff, just do it. And it's okay if it's not perfect, because everything will be refined. And I do find that in a new business, and a bit like with your book as well, it's like it just has to be done at the end of the day, and all of the rest comes out of that because it's so easy to think, well, is this the right way? Am I sharing the right message? Have I done it perfectly? Have I even done it well? But I always found with starting something new, and Karen Young used to say, just do a quick and dirty version. She'd be like, just get that one up.
Yep.
And it's so true, it's just getting the first draft, the first thing. And I love taking action anyway. I'm someone who finds it easier to take action than rest, although rest is super important. So I think I'm going to have fun kind of taking a lot of action this year, lots of little steps, and taking the pressure off it being right or correct, for me and for everyone else who's involved. So I think that's kind of, that's that one. My personal one, though, is quite different. It's almost not the opposite, but it's very different. And the reason why I chose this one is because actually this year has been a little bit challenging with illness, not of my own, but of people around me. And I've never really experienced it before being around people who are very unwell for a long period of time. And I think as we get older, this is something that happens to us all at some point. And I have so much respect for people who live, in that space, whether they're carers or work in like nursing or anything like that, because it's not my natural habitat. I'm like, come on, are you better yet? Let's go. But seeing somebody struggle with illness has really encouraged me to focus on my own wellness. So that is my personal word for the year, because I think when I am well, and we can talk about what that means a bit more in a bit, that I can do everything better. So I can run the businesses better. I can look after my son better. I can enjoy my life better. And like, we're so lucky if we're well.
Yep.
If we can move our bodies, if we can do the things we enjoy doing, if we can travel, if we can start a business. And I know so many people struggle with illness, whether it's physical or mental or whatever. I think we all struggle with it at some point in our lives. So learning, how to be as well as possible. And well for me isn't just not being ill, but it's like optimizing things. Like how can I have as much energy as possible? What things can I do that fill me up and make me feel good? And I think so far I've followed what other people have suggested, which is great. There's lots of like, I don't know, people out there who are like, try this, do that. But really going on my own journey of being like, well, what works for me? Because yeah, maybe doing cycling every day works for this person, but actually I just feel cold and it's very windy and I don't like the cars. So what's although I do quite like cycling in the summer, but what's going to work for me in terms of movement, eating, sleeping, all of those things, because I think as we get older, that just seems like, you know what do they say? Wealth is health, health is wealth, all of that kind of thing. So
Mm.
so action and wellness. And I think they go together because I want to take action, but also be well. And sometimes if there's too much action, it's hard to, so getting the balance between the two, I think, is something I'm excited to have a go at next year.
Yeah, they definitely, I get how they fit together so well, and I think you're so right. I think it's been in a similar situation in some ways of seeing people around me having issues and really realizing how important it is and how we take it for granted when we're so fortunate when we're well. We just easily just take that for granted, but actually, it's a lot, there's a lot around that. So yes, it seems
Mhm.
exciting. And I think that I the word action makes a lot of sense. Knowing you for so long as I do, and as I have, it's good. But I think you're right. I think a lot of times, there's been things that we're doing and like, well, ideally, we'd like to do this, but we just need to get going and just need to get started. So, let's go.
Yeah.
Because you can wait forever and you can be, even if it's not perfectionist, it can be perfectionism, but even if it's not perfectionism, even if it's like, oh, I just want everything to be as good as it possibly can be. And of course, that's what we want.
Mm.
Of course, we want that. But actually, what we can delay ourselves and turn around, and 3 months, 6 months has gone past, and we're not really that much further forward. And it's more of the things we want rather than necessarily our customers want. Do you know what I mean? It's the
Mhm.
things we're like, "Oh, if we just could get this sorted out." We-
I just need to tweak the website in this way, otherwise it's not right. You're absolutely right. And I love this phrase that action breeds clarity. And I've always found that to be true. When I'm stuck, the mind wants to say, well, let's figure this out before we do anything. Let's figure it all out. And some people, I have seen some people work that way, but it doesn't work for me. My mind just keeps going, well, maybe we need this, that, the other, comes
yeah,
up with all sorts of confusion. But actually, when I just start, and whenever we feel stuck in anything, like, it's just switching up the environment sometimes, isn't it? Like, right, just go for a walk, and it will change the perspective, or just go and see someone and something will change. And I think all of that's action. It's saying, like, okay, I'm going to just take the next step, whatever that is, just even if it's wrong, it's okay. And then you sort of, when you're out on the walk or you see the friend, you think, oh, now I know how to fix that tweak on the website. Come back and you do it, you feel better, and then you're ready to try something new. So it's that kind of almost endorphin loop of, like, oh, I've done something, it's worked well, now I'm going to try something else. And of course, sometimes it doesn't work well, but we still try something else. So yeah,
mm.
yeah.
I saw this thing that recently that I thought was really interesting, and it was about basically like some people need to think to talk, so they need to think it all through and then they kind of go for it, and some people need to talk to think. Me and you are both talk to thinkers. We like because you'll be like, I just need to just sort this out, can we just have a quick chat about this, and then it becomes clear, just not even me saying anything, it's more just the fact of somebody there listening and talking. I think the more we understand and know about ourselves and the way that we do things, the better we are. I've always thought that. But yeah, definitely. I mean, if we can't move forward if we don't take any action. And
Mm,
if we then go, okay, maybe that wasn't the right action, but I moved forward a square on the board, the game board,
mm.
then we've got more data, haven't we? Rather
Yeah,
than just sitting around waiting for it all to just come. Doesn't work that
absolutely.
way.
Absolutely. And I think, it's something about taking the pressure off as well. And um there's something about putting the action in and letting go of the outcome. Because I think sometimes when our
Yeah.
actions are attached to an outcome and it's like, I need to do this fair because I have to make this money, then there's pressure, right? Suddenly there's pressure. It's not like, let's try this fair, see how it goes, have some chats, no pressure. And when there's action, but because we need something at the end of it and we're sort of trying to force that, it can get really tense, and that can lead to all sorts of things like burnout or just not enjoying ourselves in our businesses, or lives in general. Whereas if it's like, okay, well, I'm going to reward myself for just taking the action, and it doesn't matter what happens. Like, okay, I went to the fair, it rained all day, no one turned up, but I went. I showed up, I took my collection, I did everything. I could have done the exact same thing and it could have been a sunny day and it would have been really successful. And that's not on me. And I think when we can start getting into that space of saying, I'm going to reward myself internally for action rather than results. And they do this, don't they, at school? Like it's effort. We used to have like a mark for effort and a mark for actual achievement. And it's quite funny if you put loads of effort in and didn't achieve anything. But generally speaking, they kind of tie up at some point. And I think, yeah, if we can be proud of what we do, regardless of the outcome, then in the long run it all kind of works itself out. So,
Definitely. But I think what can happen is that if the bigger the thing in our mind, like the more important it is, like you just said, like, oh, I have to make this certain amount of money, the more the more problematic, the more difficult it can be to take those actions because you just feel like, a bit paralyzed, like, oh, I can't do it, I can't do it. And so I really think focusing on doing your bit, because that's all we can really focus on. And yes, there's a result we want in the end that, we hope for, but just the fact of just doing the thing and trying to separate that from that is such an important one for everyone, I think, this year.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm so excited to hear about other people's words of the year as well. Like, definitely come. Hopefully, like, as you're listening, you'll be starting to think, oh, yes, I think this is something I want to work on. We can maybe talk a bit about our previous ones as well, just to give a few other suggestions and ideas and how they might have worked. But definitely come and share with us in the Facebook group or on Instagram or anywhere you like to connect with us what your word of the year is and what you're thinking of doing around it or kind of what ideas you might have. um I know that we've had different I remember my first year, I think my first year doing the word of the year, it was before we started doing the podcast on it. I think it was about 6 years ago, and that was growth. And I remember that being a very intense year because I really did go for growth, and lots of things grew. I moved house that year. The Biz Jewels Academy grew. It was like just after COVID, and there was this real kind of, it felt to me like there was this real energy of expansion and growth. And I loved that. But the year after, I had to have a softer year because I was like, okay, I can't put like the full energy of growth into every year because it's just a bit intense. And I think my year after was a really lovely year. It was a year of self love. And actually, if you can't choose, I would just say do that because it's never wrong to do that. It's like it's such a nice thing to do for yourself, at least on one of your years, is to just be like, in every day, be like, what can I do to love myself a bit more this day? I mean, just everything's awesome when you focus on that. But yeah, can you remember any of yours, Anna, or any kind of experiences you've had around them?
Yeah, I'm just looking back because I've got them on here on screen here, thankfully. So my one for 2024 was together.
Mm.
For 23 it was easy, and for 22 it was harmony. So, and I think I'm gonna own it and go, yeah, I definitely did together. I mean, I've done a lot of good collaborations, did a jewelry collaboration, did the podcast, and enjoy collaborating on this podcast. So I feel like the together one worked really well for 2024. I'm going to pat myself on the back on that
Yeah,
one.
absolutely. You have. You've really embraced it. And yeah, I remember you speaking last year about wanting to just be more with people. And because it can be very isolating, can't it? Running our own businesses. And we can just get very busy and just feel like, well, I've got all this stuff to do today. If I go out and do something with someone else, that's going to take time. And so it's finding that time, isn't it, and space and putting energy into saying, but actually, if we combine, there's so many benefits. Like it feels good. We get more done together. We both grow together. So yeah, you did. You smashed the together goal. Love it. Did you have it
Yeah.
in your mind throughout the year, or was it just something you set the intention and then it was just you're off?
I think I kind of revisited it a couple of times during the year, but I think in some ways, it just was like it set the tone for the beginning of the year and where I wanted to go to. So I always think like, maybe some people feel like the beginning of the year is an arbitrary time, and yes, it is. It really is. But I think it's a nice time to just reflect a little bit. It's a period of time, a long period of time to reflect on is a year. and see, how you've done. Because as I say, I'm forever like looking at the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and forget about, like, oh, actually, okay, no, that's that was good, and I did achieve those things. I've
Mm,
got my at the back of my journal, I write down. Sure, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but on the back of my journal, I write down, keep a page where it's like my achievements, and I kind of write down just the date, and like just even big things, little things that I achieve, because it's so easy to just forget about them and just move on. And it's nice to go back and reflect on them, especially if you're having a bit of a ugh day. You're like, oh,
mm,
this is not such a great day for me. And there's often like little things, like if somebody said a nice comment, or whatever, just like, oh, I'd forgotten about that, and it just gives you a little boost. So if you're a bit like me and you move on and don't reflect on them, maybe find some way of writing them down. I've also seen a really good one, and I've never done this, but I should do this, of having like a bowl or a jar or something, and
mm.
just and writing them on bits of paper and just put them in, and then the end of the year go through and look at them, which I think is such a lovely idea. Yeah, so
Yeah, that
sure
is
there's ways to
lovely.
reflect.
Yeah, it's almost like a gratitude list, isn't it, for your achievements? And I yeah, I'm a big fan of the gratitude list because I think that when we write down the things that are making us feel good, when we read them back, we feel good again. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to feel good more. Like, why not? And our brains can automatically replay the challenging things. I think they're very good at that, generally speaking. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, remember this horror movie from last week? Let's play that again. Whereas if you, and the more that I think we train ourselves to look for the successes, the positives, like all of those things, the more it wants to, the more it's like, oh, do you remember when we did this? And that energy and that excitement, that will take us through to the next year. So I totally agree with you. Sometimes it can feel like, well, why am I going to spend time reflecting on what didn't happen? Let's just move forward. But actually it can kind of supercharge you. And if you do feel like you had a hard year last year, I would encourage you to like to honor that and to know that, but to find 5 to 10 good things. Because in a year, there's at least 10 good things, even if it's just like I carried on through this, or
Yeah.
I met a new person who I like, or I started something, or I tried something, or I learned something. Because I think, yeah, encouraging us to reflect on all the good things is only going to help us as we kind of move forward and start to create more good things in the new year. Yeah,
Mm.
and I love a new year. I love it. I think you're right. It is a random date, but there's an energy behind it.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people go into January really struggling, which is why I love that. I think the online course community and jewelers, we can go into it in a really nice way because we're like, but we've got loads of jewelry to make. So it's fine if it's cold outside and it's dark because we've got sparkly things inside and we can make stuff together. And we're going to be doing lots of jewelry making coming up. We always like to celebrate January with our 10 days of silver, which is where we make a piece of silver jewelry together each day for 10 days. And we also have Kickstart, which is a 5-day challenge to kickstart your jewelry business and your visions and your goal setting. So actually, I think that whilst January can be a challenging time in terms of perhaps not having as much like money coming in and perhaps not you're just winding down after Christmas, but I think it is a great time to kind of really get excited about the new year, make some fun stuff, make set some good intentions for the business and get going with a strong start.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm.
No, it's exciting. And I think, I hope you've had a great year in 2024, but if that hasn't been the case, I think sometimes having a new year is like, okay, a fresh slate, let's start again. Sometimes we just need that energy of the new start, I think.
Yeah.
And so January can be, if you need to, then that's a good opportunity to have that, and just go, okay, well, maybe I've started some bad habits, or whatever. It's an opportunity to kind of come up with your new word, and go from there, from a new
Mm,
space.
absolutely. So Anna is going to be a rebel this year. So look out, guys, because that's coming. I'm very
Coming.
excited about the book as well. I'm very excited about Jewelers Academy Brighton. We're due to launch in March. That's really exciting. We've got the team that we've been building. So, yeah, looking forward to kind of everyone getting involved with that. And I'm so excited about Jewelers Academy here because we're going to keep building the online courses. We've got loads of new kind of diplomas, diploma students signed up, ready to go in September. Um, the master classes have been incredible. They are very exciting, and yeah, always doing lots of filming. And I think the thing I'm most excited about this time of year for us is the Jewelry Business Academy. 'Cause
Mhm.
that is starting on the 6th of January, which is really, really soon. And it's a brand new program that we've created, a year long program to help people get started and growing their jewelry businesses. I think it's definitely the most intense and kind of thorough business training we've ever done. And we've been doing jewelry business training for a long time, haven't we? Haven't we, Anna? So
We
it kind of
have.
yeah combines the previous jewelry business academy and the boot camp, and a little bit like the handmade jewelers vibe in terms of the filming. So that's something I'm very excited about, kind of for us as an online community to get started with as well.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. It's going to be really strange because it's the first year we've not had boot camp for many a long year, and that's not to say that boot camp isn't there, but it's just we've diffused it more through the year so that
Mm.
there's more space. I think what people were needing was that more space to kind of just get to things and take the time to process and create and as we the boot camp was what was it 8 weeks, so
Yes.
8 weeks, wasn't it? Which was new. It was real proper boot camp stuff,
Mm.
but there was enough content in there for a year. And so, and in the Jewelry Business Academy, there's more. There's more as well. So, I love how that has evolved. And I love, for anyone who's ready and wanting to either start a business or grow a business, this is really going to get you going by this time next year. You'll it'll be unrecognizable, I think, if you kind of
Mm.
just keep going, keep that momentum going, go for your action. And if that's also a word for you this year, then definitely have a look at it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, hopefully, me and Anna have given you some ideas. Like I said, come share your word of the year with us. We would love to hear about it. If you've got a few, that's okay. We try and keep it to one. I did go to two this year, so it's all about the focus, isn't it? And yeah, I think like the final thing I would say is just think about a word that will help the different areas of your life, and think about how you can use it in different areas of your life so you can really embrace it. Because I think the times when the word of the year's really worked for me is when I've really kind of gone into it and sort of really encouraged myself around it and thought and asked myself the question regularly, how can I, like, am I in line with this? It's like setting a vision for yourself. Am I in line with it? Or does this need to change? Or do I need to change what I'm doing? If my word of the year is action, but I've stopped doing the things that I know are going to help, like, how can I get back into that action? If my word of the year is wellness, and I've not taken any time to do anything to look after myself, like, how can I, like, create that? So it's not about setting any pressure, but it's about saying, well, this is the intention, so I'm going to start with that. And if I move away from it, how can I come back to it in some way? Because there was something in me that made me feel like I want to explore this year. And I feel like if you really give your word of the year your attention, your effort, your energy, you'll probably feel like you've done it. And next year you'll be like, I'm ready for the next thing. Like you said, I'm reflecting on previous ones and being like, oh, that's where I was then. And this is where I am now. And that's quite a nice thing to be able to reflect on as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to see what everyone has to share.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Anna, thank you so much for coming and sharing about your word of the year as well. Very excited for you for the year ahead. And thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. We have lots of fun things coming up for January. So do get involved. And yeah, good luck with your word of the year. Look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye for now.